Here we are, back in the Star Wars verse, back in the world of Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is part 4, and it's not going to be that much of a long review because there's very little to review. There's very little that happens. It's dull. It's very dull. Some of the weakest writing so far, and some of the most leaden performances as well. I had a very hot and cold relationship with the last part 3, where we saw Vader going all badass. And though there are some questionable decisions that the writers made in relation to Vader and his powers, we all know that he was baiting Obi-Wan. That's very apparent. But then to be stalled by flames poses questions. Is it PTSD? But having already extinguished the flames, why couldn't he have just scaled it or vanquished or diminished the flames? And there's loads more questions that build up. Is it purposeful? Is it intentional? Or is it just lazy bad writing? Do they know what they're doing, or are they just going by the seat of their pants, on the fly, and almost stream of consciousness? A lot of this feels like fan fiction made real, made tangible. And a lot of what is good about this is when it looks like Star Wars. But the remainder of the episodes, or shall I say, the parts, it feels fan fiction-y in its execution and its filming. Also, this is the one episode where I'm like, Ewan, what's going on? Was this whole episode, or this whole part, filmed on your first day? The same with the child actor, and the same with Moses Ingram. It's just flat delivery. It's not interesting. It's meant to be high stakes. This whole episode, in summary, is meant to be about the Force reawakening, Obi-Wan Kenobi finding his feet, getting back in touch with the Force. But another rescue mission? Ugh. There should have been something a little bit more introspective. Obi-Wan healing. Obi-Wan trying to patch things up. Trying to come to grips with the Force. But instead they're like, oh, let's send him out on another mission to get Leia. It needed a little bit of breath. It needs some breathing space. Some internalization. Fuck, maybe a few flashbacks. Even at this point, I was expecting a flashback to tank sequence. And the intercutting between the, I wouldn't say disappointing fight between Vader and Obi-Wan, but a weird cross-cutting between him healing and Vader in his own healing pod. Overall, the episode was slow and dull, featuring terrible line readings. And it does pose the question, is that merely bad writing? Or is it bad acting as well? The actress who plays Reva, the third sister, has been dragged through the coals, much like Obi-Wan in the previous episode, over her performance. And then it also escalates into racism. And you know what? It's the posing of the question of, is a badly written character. An actor can do ever so much, but it's also signs of a bad actor. So far, I've enjoyed her portrayal. Sometimes it's OTT, sometimes it veers into pantomime, fanfiction-y, cosplay levels of performance. But I think some of the brunt needs to be taken by Moses Ingram. She's not that skilled of an actress. She overplays her hand. And point facto, Harrison Ford made some stinkers, some real bad lines pass with zim and zil, with a flourish. A lot of these actors are just struggling under the weight of bad writing. And even though this is about Obi-Wan rediscovering his mojo, it didn't feel right or correct. And as dull and slow as this episode is, it doesn't give you that moment of introspection, of breath, because loads of new characters are introduced, loads of new characters poorly performed by what feels like non-amateurish actors. The last episode was pretty much Obi coming to the realisation that he had
lost my mojo!
Yep, indeed, lost his mojo. This episode, though it's framed as if to force his hand to reaffiliate himself with the Force and his skills, I think more of a meditation, maybe a conversation with a certain Jedi Master would have affirmed something, rather than another slow snooze fest of a mission. Ugh. You know, it's a very, 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 very boring episode. And I don't have much hope for the rest of it. Also, Deborah Chow. I know that there's certain angles and positionings of the camera that you want to use on Vader that hasn't been done before, but the evidence is in all the other products. Certain angles and certain lightings captures Vader's performance, captures Vader. It's a mask, so you have to find ways to light him to exude that menace. And once again, the handling of Vader in this episode felt fanboyish, fanfiction-y, which passed off as a homemade movie and posted on YouTube. It works, it's cool. But for something with a high production value as this, it's weak and it's pathetic. I have a real conflicted feeling around this series. It feels like it shouldn't exist. I'm happy that it does, but also at the same time, I'm worried. I am fucking worried.
I've lost my mojo!